If you're wondering why has almost every band I've heard on The Faction today a band that I saw at Unify once or twice in my life, it's no coincidence. Because you can't go to Unify this year, we're bringing it to you. Hello, my name is Nashy, and in conjunction with our friends at UNFD, all weekend it's a heavy music radio takeover. You'll hear live Unify sets, some archived interviews, and along the way, the bands that played at Unify will join us. And that brings me to this man. His name is Andrew Marsh, guitarist from Thy Art Is Murder. Thank you for chatting to The Faction today.
Thanks for having me.
Do you prefer to go by Andy or Marshy or Andrew?
I don't really give a shit what Sweetips. I don't really care what people call me. I get called Andrew in some scenarios, Andy by most people, Marshy by a fair amount, and Mishy by my gaming friends. So it really doesn't matter. And
Shredmaster by your adoring fans.
I don't think so.
Is it true that Thy Art played at the first Unify?
Must have been the first or the second one. Maybe 2000. You know what? It would have been 2015, I reckon. And yeah, I remember it. I flew all the way from the other side of the world to Melbourne just to play it, as I did another 3 years later, or 2 years later, however long later it was. It was quite the journey for one show.
Is that because of a touring schedule?
No, I lived in the States for the better part of the last decade.
And you jumped on that plane, it would have been at least 17 hours to play at Unify.
Mate, from where I lived, it would have been about 24 hours worth of flying. And we had a great time. We had our whole posse of mates down in Melbourne. And it was one of the last times, I guess the last 5 years, the band's gotten pretty big, and our touring operation is pretty serious. It's not so much fun and games as much, it's fun for us, but it's a little bit more serious with the fire and whatnot. And back then it was as simple as getting a 12-seater van, getting the band and a few of our friends together and driving to a show. And that's the last show that I remember doing that in. We all piled in a van. It was packed to the brim. We had no room. All the gear was in there, and we stopped at the servo, got a sausage roll, and we went and hit Unify.
And then you played at Unify a few years later. Did you notice the following had substantially grown since the first show?
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, in the interim between the first time we played and the next time we played, we made a record, put it out. CJ had quit the band. He'd spent a year out of the band. He'd rejoined the band. I mean, he rejoined the band at Unify in 2017.
So would that have been the first show back with CJ?
100% it was his first show back.
Would you have been nervous?
No, I was excited. So I'd been working with him in the year that he'd been out of the band. He had he's famously well known, like he had a bit of a drug issue and kind of dipped out of the band to kind of sort his life out. And him and I had been working together personally in that year off, like, if you want to come back, I'll support whatever transition you need to make. Like, let's work towards this. End of 2016, we recorded Dear Desolation together again. And we thought, what better way to bring it home, announce everything than playing a festival in Australia. So at Unify, he came back, and I think we had like a bit of a running joke that week. People were saying, they're playing the festival, who's going to sing? And we'll post some photos with our mates, like, new Thy Art Is Murder vocalist.
John Farnham seen in Melbourne airport.
I don't even think I told the blokes at Unified until we got to the festival and CJ was there, and they're like, hang on a minute, what's this bloke doing here?
I'm sure that caused the promoters a massive headache. Do you have an update for 2021? I know everything is TBC at the moment, but some positive news for your fans would be awesome right now.
Some festivals in the middle of the year, cross our fingers, and we've got our headline tour slated for October. I think we've got quite enough margin of safety here. 9 months away, but given we should have a vaccine rolling out here in the next 4 to 6 weeks, everything's feeling pretty positive, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but cross our fingers that we'll get to play a show for some folks.
Mishy, Marshy, Andy, Andrew, thank you for chatting to The Faction today and reminiscing some of those golden, glorious Unify memories.
No worries. Thanks a lot for having me.